Wes Craven is one of my favourite directors. A Nightmare on Elm Street, The Hills Have Eyes, People Under the Stairs, Last House on the Left, and of course, the Scream films. Among his filmography though, he had plenty of underrated gems like 2005's Red Eye starring Cillian Murphy and Rachel McAdams. There's The Serpent and the Rainbow, Stranger in Our House, but probably his most underrated work in my opinion is Cursed. It's a film written by Kevin Williamson, who also collabed with Craven on the Scream franchise, but is also responsible for helping revolutionise not only teen slasher movies, but meta-commentary movies in general. From the writing of Screams 1, 2 and 4, The Faculty, I Know What You Did Last Summer, and even recently last year's Sick, the man deserves far more credit than is given, and when teaming up with Craven, they seemingly could do no wrong. Or so we thought. It wasn't until they both worked on the film Curse starring Jesse Eisenberg and Christina Ricci did people start to doubt them in the horror field. But what people have often failed to understand is that this film suffered from the typical studio tampering. I'll never understand hiring people such as Craven and Williamson who were very bold and unique creatives and then deciding to fuck with their vision. But regardless, this movie was chopped up, rewrote, shot for multiple age ratings and versions, and though there is an unrated cut of this movie available, though there is an actual campaign to release the Craven cut, I'm going to be talking about the theatrical cut because although the final product is a shaky time with shaky effects and a PG-13 rating, I do think what Craven and Williamson were able to string together through all this turmoil is not only a miracle, but actually quite good. Now, let me get this out of the way. I don't think this movie is a masterpiece, it's a very flawed movie, but I think the hate and reputation this movie has received from its release up until the modern day is entirely unwarranted, so let's just get into the film. Spoilers are to be expected. Now first of all, if you tell me there's a 2000s campy horror film directed by Wes Craven, written by Kevin Williamson, starring Jesse Eisenberg and Christina Ricci, featuring Judy Greer, Maya, Shannon Elizabeth, Milo Ventimiglia, and this guy from Scream 2, about a werewolf curse, you have me instantly sold on your film. This honestly sounds like a dream pitch of a movie, except it actually exists, and it utilises all the techniques that made Craven and Williamson's Scream work so well in '96. For one, this film is not taking itself seriously at all. If you try to look at this film as playing it entirely straight, you'll probably lose your mind, and honestly, I think it was an initial flop because people were sold on an all-out horror time, and it really isn't that. The trailer will have you believe this film is going purely for the scare factor, which it kind of isn't. I mean, just quickly look at this scene from the climax and tell me this is trying to play it straight.
She's got a bony ass, and fat thighs, and bad skin.
That shit is fucking hilarious, bro, and what I think people are also missing is that this film is an homage to classic horror films, especially The Wolfman. There are even tons of placements of old horror icons like The Wolfman or like Nosferatu, all of which by today's standards and even in 2004 are kinda goofy. But that's okay. It's great when an old horror movie stands up to the test of time and can still terrify you, but it's fine for it not to anymore. We as an audience have become desensitized to a lot of old horrors, and we've become more accustomed to certain things. We've grown in the decades, so it's understandable for these movies to not hold up the scare factor in the way that they once did. They can still be appreciated with context and for their pioneering of the genre, but also horror films aren't exactly there to just frighten you. There is so much more nuance to the genre than simply the scary genre. And the campy stuff and the goofy stuff definitely have their place. Hell, Craven built a legacy on that. The original Nightmare on Elm Street for the most part is not that scary by all accounts, but what Craven is going for he achieves and absolutely smashes it there. And here, I think he executes what he's going for pretty well despite the studio tampering, and I just think it's not what people were expecting or wanted. But this is a film where Jesse Eisenberg beats up multiple guys in a wrestling competition due to werewolf strength, essentially doing the Flash Thompson Spider-Man 1 fight gag, and it's fucking incredible. The cast are giving their absolute best to this script, and even though Jesse Eisenberg really isn't built for horror and had not yet found his lane since he was just 19 at the time of filming, he still pulls a decent amount from his character. Christina Ricci, of course, being the queen that she is, knocks it out of the park, but I have to say, killing off Shannon Elizabeth this quickly in a movie should be illegal. But regardless, for the time she has on screen, she also gives a solid performance. As does pretty much everybody, and all of it is aided by the wonderful direction of Craven, because look, even in an unpleasant work environment with bad conditions enforced by producers with reworks, rewrites, reshoots and pushbacks, the man at the end of the day is an auteur and can craft special moments out of lackluster material. His work at red herrings and building suspense has always been incredible. I mean, from the very beginning of his career to the apex with Scream, his talent for building up to breath-holding moments to sometimes no payoff is unbelievable. He and Williamson also craft this boyfriend character to be a red herring, making you think he's going to be the villain, to then make you believe he's not, and then uses reverse psychology by making you think that he is again, therefore he must not be a problem at all, for at the end to actually make him the villain. It's expertly done and very reminiscent of Billy from Scream, but the one thing we have here that Craven isn't usually used to dealing with is a creature. See, the idea of the werewolf is different to basically every Craven antagonist in the fact that it isn't a character, it's a being, an idea, a force, which is harder to make interesting as an antagonist. Say Freddy Krueger, he's very sadistic, sarcastic, humorous, and played with a lot of scary charisma by Robert Englund. Ghostface has a new personality every single time he's on screen due to different killers with different motivations. The mutants from The Hills Have Eyes have a history in different personalities and roles. Jackson Ripner in Red Eye, played by Cillian Murphy, is the classic charming psycho, and they're all aided by performance. But here we just have a creature design with little to no emotion other than anger and kill. So this was a challenge for Craven. Even Williamson had never really done this before. The closest he had been was with the faculty, and even then the alien embodied personalities to disguise themselves as teachers, so this was the first time for both of them, and considering that, they do pretty well. The practical design of the creature and costume is silly for sure, but it's fun and cool and something you'd never see made today, which is a pure shame. The costuming and makeup was done by Rich Baker, who famously worked on The Exorcist, Michael Jackson's Thriller, Star Wars, Videodrome, and tons more. But most interestingly, he won an Academy Award for his work on An American Werewolf in London, which has an infinitely more terrifying werewolf design, which definitely leads me to believe this is supposed to be kind of silly, retro, and not blood-curdlingly scary. I love the practical costume. The fault in the design actually lies entirely in the CGI, which is definitely low-budget 2004 CGI. For reference, Prisoner of Azkaban came out in 2004 and had much better CGI for their werewolf, but granted, they also had double the budget and less pressure and interference from the studio. Regardless, I can't deny the computer generated effects are doo-doo and don't hold up really well at all, but luckily I think because the film is so campy, the effects kind of just slot into the B-movie feel of it all. And yeah, I don't have much else to say. There's some holes in the storytelling that don't make entire sense. The studio tampering is definitely felt in some of the scenes where you can tell Craven wanted to go harder but couldn't. And the fact they failed to cast Skeet Ulrich, which they intended to do, is a crying shame, but 15% on Rotten Tomatoes and 2.6 stars on Letterboxd. I mean, this is a film where they have a high school bully develop a gay crush on the kid they bullied, and the arc is handled so oddly well that you root for Bo in the end. Jesse Eisenberg literally says the phrase "gay is yay," and if that doesn't convince you this movie is a worthy time, I don't understand you. So yeah, it may not be Ginger Snaps or An American Werewolf in London or even The Wolfman, but I do truly think this film is overly hated and deserves another shot at people's hearts. For every year that Craven has gone, his lack of presence and creative energy in horror is sorely felt, and I think he deserves a look back and re-evaluation because Cursed isn't the werewolf recontextualized. It didn't do for that monster what he did with Scream for slashers or what The Craft did for witches. It isn't a terrifying time that'll have you leaving your bedroom light on at night, but it is a fun and campy time entirely worth of a chance. But that's just me. What do you think? Have you seen Cursed? If so, let me know what you think about it. Let me know what you think of this video. I read every single comment and reply to as many as possible. And whether it's a misunderstood and underrated gem from Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson or not, as always, keep watching movies.